Does your brother have to ask for forgiveness before you can forgive him from the heart? You can certainly forgive someone who has not asked for it. All right, welcome back to Cypress Bible Church question and answer videos. Here's a question on the Passion Week. Jesus asked the Father to forgive the Romans, but did they first have to recognize their sin to be forgiven? Or can a person be forgiven just by Jesus having asked for their forgiveness? Okay, great question there. 2 or 3 things to say about this particular question. First, I think the concept being referenced in the particular question here, that is, Jesus is forgiving of or asking the Father to forgive the Romans, is really less about a relational forgiveness between him and the Romans and more an acknowledgement that these Romans do not know what they're doing. They think they're crucifying an insurrectionist, a common criminal. Had they known that Jesus was in fact the Son of God, had they perhaps even heard his claims to that end, they would be judged differently, held to a different accountability. I think all Jesus is saying in that passage is, Father, don't hold them accountable for what they don't know. Father, forgive them. They don't know what they're doing. I think that's what's being referenced in that particular passage. But the question is a great question. Let's spend just a little bit of time talking about it. Does a person have to forgive you or have to ask for your forgiveness before you can forgive them? One of the best passages on forgiveness that I know is Matthew chapter 18. And Peter asked this question to Jesus. He says, Lord, how often will my brother sin against me and I forgive him? As many as 7 times? And of course, Peter thinks that he's being highly generous by this offer of 7 times of forgiveness. And Jesus said to him, I do not say to you 7 times, but 77 times. So, in other words, there's this deep well, this inexhaustible well of forgiveness that God expects of us towards other people. And we are to forgive others out of the forgiveness we have received from Christ. That is the source of our forgiving power. And so Jesus makes that point in a parable. And he says, therefore, a kingdom of heaven may be compared to a king who wished to settle accounts with his servant. When he began to settle, one was brought to him who owed him 10,000 talents. And that's just an astronomical figure. It's like 200,000 years of service. I mean, we're talking, $5 billion. It's so much money. It's an astronomical figure. And since he could not pay, his master ordered him to be sold with his wife and his children and all that he had, and payment be made. So the servant fell on his knees, imploring him, having patience with me, and I will pay you everything. And out of pity for him, the master of the servant released him and forgave him the debt. But when the same servant went out, and he found one of his fellow servants who owed him 100 denarii, and seizing him, he began to choke him, saying, pay what you owe. Now, 100 denarii is no small amount. That's maybe 4 months' wages. So what is that? $20,000 if you make, $80,000 a year, something like that. And so this is no small debt. So his fellow servant fell down and pleaded with him, have patience with me, and I will pay you. He refused and went and put him in prison until he should pay the debt. And when his fellow servants saw that what had taken place, they were greatly distressed, and they went and reported to their master all that had taken place. Even the servants who were watching saw the discrepancy. Then his master summoned him and said to him, you wicked servant, I forgave you all that debt because you pleaded with me. And should not you have had mercy on your fellow servant as I had mercy on you? And in anger his master delivered him to the jailers until he should pay all his debts. And then here's the punchline of the entire parable. So also my heavenly Father will do to every one of you if you do not forgive your brother from the heart. So the question is, what does it mean to forgive your brother from the heart. Does your brother have to ask for forgiveness before you can forgive him from the heart? Probably the easiest way, in my mind anyway, to answer this question is to ask, what's the opposite of forgiveness? The opposite of forgiveness is to hold a grudge, to be bitter, to just look at that person and seethe in anger. That's the opposite. So can you forgive a person who has not asked? The answer is absolutely you can. You can certainly forgive someone who has not asked for it. Now, there is a difference, a very big difference, between you forgiving a person who has not asked and restoring relational reconciliation. In order for that to happen, absolutely the person must ask, must acknowledge what has taken place, must ask for forgiveness, and that forgiveness has to be extended. So just make a distinction between forgiving someone, which is an act of the heart, an act of generosity, out of the forgiveness that God offers to you. You offer that same forgiveness to other people. You can do that without them asking. But in order to restore the relationship, there has to be an acknowledgement and a reception of the forgiveness that you offer.